Hi everyone, I'm Zach Reinhardt, here to review the new Nogizaka46 album, Sorezore no Isu. Nogizaka46 are like 46 member big idol group a la AKB48, along those lines. They do sound very similar. And these girls are actually kind of billed as rivals for AKB48. And still, if you go to their Twitter, the first thing in their Twitter bio is AKB48. But yeah, this is just very typical J-pop group. And this is a type of music that I am typically not very fond of. So that may leave you wondering why I decided to review it in the first place. And there are a couple reasons. The first reason I decided to review this album is I haven't really reviewed any very typical J-pop on this channel. I've done J-pop stuff, but it's all been like Perfume and like Dimpagumi Inc. And those aren't like the very typical sounding groups. They've got a bit of their own sound and they're a little more eccentric. Whereas this is very typical J-pop, like J-pop 101. And I haven't really reviewed that. And reason number two is I feel it's at least somewhat of a good mental exercise to kind of put yourself in the shoes of the more average music listener and try to understand their perspective. Because I mean, this album was number one the week it came out, and it sold a ton, and people like this shit. And obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean it's good music, but I think it's worth checking out every once in a while. Then the third reason, which is the reason why I decided to specifically review this album, is this album was reviewed on the Japan Times in their music section. And while the Japan Times isn't exactly the greatest music publication, they're usually at least decent. And I figured that they probably wouldn't have reviewed it if it was just a big article saying how much they hated it. So I thought, hey, maybe this one's decent. So I ordered it. It came in the mail. And I gotta say, I was prepared for a fairly generic sounding J-pop album. But I was not prepared for the near hour and 15 minutes runtime of generic J-pop. But getting into the content of this album, this thing kicks off with the song Inochi wa Utsukushi, which is a, kind of piano ballad, I guess. It's got these kind of heartfelt piano chords, and it's got acoustic guitar and strings kind of backing the piano. And it's a very kind of just typical ballad. I thought it was pretty boring, pretty generic. There's not really anything that stands out about this song. I've kind of already heard it 1,000 times before I even listened to it. And so I'm thinking like, all right, this is pretty expected. This is kind of what I was in for. And then we go over to the second track, Taiyo Nak, which is more upbeat, and it's actually kind of decent. It's not just really generic and boring. Well, it is fairly generic, but it's at least entertaining. It's just got a decent chorus. I like the bridge on it as well. And while the verses aren't really anything to take note of, it's still a fairly fun song. And it's all right. So at this point in listening, I'm 2 tracks in, it had a kind of boring track to kick off, started off with a ballad, it's whatever. But this second track is pretty decent, so I'm thinking, alright, maybe I made a good choice. Maybe this is an alright idol album. But then we get 3 more ballads in a row that sound just almost like the exact same song. They are just filled with very similar sounding piano and string arrangements with acoustic guitar. They are paced exactly the same. They really just like are almost the same song. And then at this point in the album, I am starting to realize that this collection of songs has a problem with ballads. Then we get over into a few actually pretty decent songs. We get into track 6, Taiyo ni Kudokareta, which is much more upbeat. It's pretty like dancey, and it's got like a fun horn section and synths, and it's actually like the best song so far on the album. It's pretty quality. I would actually like just listen to this song. I wouldn't mind hearing this on the radio or something if I listened to the radio. It just sounds different from the rest of the tracks on here, and it's got some more drum presence, and it's just overall fairly catchy. Then we get into track 7, Yokobo no Reincarnation, which has this really kind of cringy, like bad, like auto-tuney intro. But once it gets into the groove of things, it's actually pretty good. It's kind of funky. It's got a little bit of a disco vibe. It's got these kind of distant, like quiet strummed guitars that I like. They're kind of Bee Gees esque. It's got a pretty funky bass line as well. And while it's not anything like great or it's not a really well done version of disco, it's decent and it's you know all right. I don't mind it. But then we get into track 8, Kanashimi no Wasareho. And I'm just going to read straight from my notes on this one, okay? I wrote, fucking piano, strings, back to square one, kill me. And that's all I felt necessary to write about this song that is just another fucking ballad that sounds just like all the other ballads. I think we've had, 5 so far. And we're just at the halfway point, people. Then we cross over into the second half of the album with track 9, Kukikan, which I think they fucked up the title here. I think they meant to call it Kukikan Sen, as I would imagine hearing this song while you're out shopping would be similar to just knowing that there's an airborne infection all around you. This song has a very kind of American pop sound. It's a little summery. It kind of reminds me of maybe something Katy Perry would do. And it's pretty bad. Its only redeeming feature is that it's not a fucking piano ballad, you know? And it has possibly the worst guitar solo I've heard this year. It is like these just really kind of long, held out notes that just are seemingly kind of random, and there's just nothing like musically pleasing about the guitar solo at all. Like, it's just really horrible. Then we get 2 more songs that are all just pretty meh. There's the song Kogose Kibo, which is not a ballad, so I guess that's good, but it's pretty just boring, I guess. There's really nothing special to say about it. And then we get another ballad on track 11, Muhyojo, which is possibly the worst one on the whole album. It has these like bells that sound all right when they're kind of spaced out, but there's this point on the chorus where they have to play a bunch of notes in quick succession, which kind of overlap and create this just horrible sounding cacophony of like, wanting to kill myself. But having survived 11 tracks, we get to track 12, Arakajime Katarareru Romance, which is the only good song on the whole album. It's actually like actively good. It's got a really nice vocal melody right from the start and on the chorus, and it's just really catchy. It's the only song that got stuck in my head at all in this whole album, and it's the only song that I kept wanting to return to. Like, as I was listening to the rest of the songs after this, I kept just thinking about this track and wanting to just come back and listen to this track again. And I did at the end of the album. I just came back and listened to this a couple times. It's actually just a fun pop track. It's upbeat. It has a nice horn section to it, and it's just quality. There's nothing really special or groundbreaking about it. It's just done well. But then we get three more ballads in a row that all sound exactly the fucking same. And my desire for death quickly begins to shoot up into the sky. And then we reach the final track, Nogizaka no Uta, which has this like really strange gang vocal like intro, which is just like really weird when you hear the song for the first time, and it makes sense later because it's the same melody that's on the chorus, but it's just a really strange choice for an intro. And it's not a ballad, which is really its only redeeming feature. And aside from that, it's pretty boring, generic, and unimaginative. That's the end of the album. Overall, I've made a chart. As you can see, as time progresses, my desire for death quickly begins to rise. And that really goes uninterrupted until the end of the album. Overall, with this album, I'm left only with questions. Those being, why did we need 9 ballads on this 16-track album? Like, 2 or 3 is plenty. And why are these all like 5 to 6 minutes? As I was listening to these songs, every time I was like looking up at my Windows Media Player window just to see how far into the song I was, because I was feeling like the song should end, and consistently I was getting bored with the song at like 3 minutes on every track. This thing is just incredibly boring and generic, and there's really nothing special about it at all. I'm feeling a 3 out of 10. I guess feel free to yell at me in the comments as to why I'm wrong. But yeah, that's me. Nogizaka46. It's pretty bad. Don't do it.